Today, we're going to dive into John C. Maxwell's legendary book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. We're going to pull out 3 key principles that will totally change the way you think about your own potential.
So let's just start with the big question. Why do so many incredibly hardworking and talented people seem to hit a wall? They're giving it everything they've got, but their effectiveness just flatlines. What is that invisible barrier that's holding them back?
Well, according to Maxwell, the answer isn't a lack of drive or skill in their specific field. No, the answer is something he calls the law of the lid. Think of it like an invisible ceiling that basically dictates the maximum height of all your success.
To get what this means, let's look at the story of Dick and Maurice McDonald. Back in the 40s and 50s, these guys were absolute geniuses when it came to operations. Their speedy service system created a hamburger joint that was just a masterclass in efficiency and profit.
But here's the catch. When they tried to franchise their brilliant concept, it totally flopped. They only sold it to a handful of buyers. So why? It's because while they were amazing restaurant managers, they weren't leaders. Their own thinking put a hard lid on their massive potential. And that right there brings us to the first law. It is so simple, but it is profound. Your leadership ability is the absolute ceiling on your overall effectiveness. It doesn't matter how hard you work or how brilliant you are at your job, your leadership skills sets the limit.
Now, check this out. This slide really shows the incredible multiplier effect of leadership. Let's say your dedication to success is an 8 out of 10, but your leadership skill is only a 1. Your effectiveness is severely capped. But look what happens if you just raise that leadership score to a 6. Suddenly, your effectiveness is 5 times greater, and you're not even working any harder.
Okay, so if raising our leadership lid is the secret to unlocking our potential, we have to ask the next logical question: what actually is leadership? Because you know what? It's probably not what most of us have been taught to think.
The most common mistake is what Maxwell calls the position myth. We see a title, manager, CEO, director, and we just automatically assume that person is a leader. But that is a really dangerous assumption to make.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? A title doesn't make you a leader. True leadership can't just be assigned, it has to be earned. And that brings us to the second law.
The real test, the one true measure of leadership, is simply influence. Nothing more, nothing less. If you can't influence people to follow you, to buy into your vision, then you aren't leading them. It really doesn't matter what your business card says. Just think about Princess Diana. When she lost her official royal title, did her power to make a difference shrink? No way. It was the exact opposite. Her influence, her ability to get people to rally around causes she cared about, actually grew stronger. She was a leader because she was an influencer, not because she was a princess.
Okay, so our lid is our leadership ability, and leadership is influence. The million-dollar question then becomes, how do we grow that influence? How do we actively work to raise our own lid?
And the answer is found in our third law for today, the law of process. You see, becoming a leader isn't some big event. It's a process. It's kind of like investing, right? You don't get rich overnight. You make small, smart investments every single day, and over time, the results compound into something absolutely incredible.
Maxwell actually lays out this journey in 4 phases. We all start at phase 1, where we don't even know what we don't know about leadership. Then we move into a phase of awareness, then intentional growth, and finally, we can reach a point where our ability to lead becomes so ingrained it's almost pure instinct.
The story of Theodore Roosevelt is just a perfect example of this law of process in action. We all remember him as this larger-than-life, powerful figure, but he actually began his life as a frail, sickly, and timid child. When he was 12 years old, his father gave him a challenge that would totally define the rest of his life. He said, "You have the mind, but you have not the body. You must make the body." And that is exactly what young Roosevelt decided to do. He committed himself to a daily, relentless process of building himself up, physically, mentally, and in his character. This lifelong commitment to process didn't just make him strong, it literally forged him into one of the most dynamic and influential leaders the world has ever seen.
So how do we tie all of this together? Let's turn these 3 really powerful laws into a practical plan for raising our own lid on potential, and we can start today.
This really builds a clear path forward for us. First, you have to acknowledge your lid. Your leadership skill is your ultimate constraint. Second, stop focusing on titles and start building genuine influence. And third, commit to the process, that daily discipline of just getting a little bit better every single day. And this brings us to one final thought. A great coach once said that champions aren't made in the ring, they are merely recognized there. They are made through their daily routine. So the question for you is this: what one small action will you take today to begin your process of raising the lid?
Please do subscribe.